and welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Mod Matt He, the podcast monkey, and we're straight across the Law Corner with Mod Osborne.
So hello everybody, welcome to the Law Corner. We're going to go full panto now, because it's Sliske. Whoop whoop. We've got Mod Raven, Mod Stu, and Mod Rowley.
Hello.
Hello. You ready for a bit of Sliske? I'd like to start with pronunciation, which Sliske always had troubled me.
You just said it about 10 times.
I know, but that's because I have to keep on saying it, otherwise I'm going to lose it. Because originally it was, everybody called him differently. It was Sliske in-house. It had to take Paul, when we were doing the pronunciation guide, to actually say, wait, it's Sliske, and we all went, sorry, what? Oh, right. Oh, man. Well, we've been doing that wrong for a while.
Was he responsible for Ardoin too?
Dugny. Yeah, he kind of really was.
I'm going to challenge you straight away. Your use of the word pantomime when describing Sliske.
I think that it's unfair. I'm doing it on purpose.
It's one element of his character.
It is one element.
It is not the whole.
And hey, maybe even Kindred Spirits will go into more detail, which I think is out now. If this podcast
This isn't a pantomime unless I've gotten something I wasn't expecting.
I'm now trying to work my timelines. I've gone full sixth age. I think it's probably worth going back to when he first came about. And he was a kind of the mysterious character. He was one of these, we don't know much about him. Created the Barrows Brothers.
He was never overtly named in it. He was the mysterious stranger from the Barrows book in game.
Yeah.
And his character started to form with the Laws and Histories, which was a reinterpretation of that book as a short story.
Yeah.
And that's where the kind of sinister nature, the bargainer,
that's it. And I remember from that, people then started to extrapolate and wonder whether or not Devious Minds, the first character in Devious...
I think I always touted that.
Yeah.
The ninja...
No, I saw there were some players who were wondering if Devious Minds' character, this kind of hooded stranger, was Sliske, which we backed away from.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's no longer true. But it's that edge of mystery. We love our mysterious characters, our Zaroses, our Raptors. Sliske was one of them. And then Ritual of the Madrat, I think, is probably the next step in Sliske's career.
Yeah, that would have been Paul's extension of it. And I think Chris is a little bit too, Chris Long.
Yeah, who was always a fan of the Barrows Brothers, always do his Barrows runs. So had a lot of interest in Sliske. And that's when it started seeding that Sliske was interested in the player. There was this kind of weird connection, a fascination from Sliske to the player. And that connection always kind of interested us. Plus it was also that, you had these two very regimented groups. You had the Zerosians, you had the Zamorakians of the Madrat. And Sliske always sat slightly oddly in that group. Of the Zerosians. He was always kind of pulling against the status quo, and he'd almost look at it kind of slightly, not as comic relief, but he could see the farcicality of it, this strangeness of it, which led to the World Wakes. And kind of the World Wakes, we knew that we wanted to make the player special with the World Guardianship and making them at the forefront of the Sixth Age. And really we needed a counterpoint, an antagonist throughout it. And that antagonist couldn't be a god because the gods weren't here yet. So we need antagonists to kill Gothics. And I think we were all just kind of racking our brains for characters, and we rested on Sliske.
Do you recall where that came from? Was it groupthink? Was it from Anna?
It was very much Anna. Yeah. So Anna just kind of picked up on Sliske from Ritual of the Madrat, really found him quite an interesting character to write for. I think this is part of it. It's who do you pick? Well, you want to pick somebody that you want to write for. And Sliske, because wasn't part of the status quo, was doing some very interesting things, was fascinated with the player as well. I think there was that connection. And it was also the Shadow Realm element that meant that we could have him popping in and out of areas that logically he could have been in Guthix's tomb, in his site quite early.
And arrived there early. Too. It was very useful to be able to him take you to the Shadow Realm and perform surveillance in other areas at the start of World Wakes. So see what the characters were doing.
And obviously there was also the Stone of Jazz element, that if he was constantly watching the player, which is what we did, this kind of creepy stalker kind of theme, and that was why I was fascinated with the player, then he could have watched what we were doing with the Stone of Jazz and could have followed it. I mean, some players saw that as relatively cheap, which is fair enough. But it's his kind of mastery of the Shadow Realm that really helped.
I mean, he's also just part of his character made him just right for the role as well, which is that you don't know what his motivations are.
Yeah.
Particularly then before because as you were saying, he's Zerosian, but is he really? Kind of what?
Yeah.
And he's not the obvious villain. If we used a Zamorakian, it's he's obviously evil. But with Sliske, it's is he doing something because it's maybe in some ways good. What is his motivation?
That's what I like about what we're doing this year, because genuinely, I mean, you can keep doing that ad nauseum, like, you don't know what he's going to do, and then he's going to pivot and do something else. And we're actually going to be peeling away those masks.
Yeah, we're starting to reveal some of his, certainly in Kindred Spirits, we reveal some of his motivations.
Yeah, which is only fair to actually reveal what we had planned this time.
You can kind of see the arc of him. He's starting out being quite mysterious and sinister, and as he's become more familiar, you've seen more of that element of his farcicality come into play. I'm not sure that's a word. It's more farcical nature.
But that's what he wants to project.
Pantomime, yeah.
Yeah, that's the ultimate mask.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of players have issue with that not being Sliske's character, and there is a truth to that. It's not his character, and he's kind of hiding an aspect of himself.
So it's the mask he wears.
It's kind of the point,
Yeah,
which
because
then
this is the big game, the big performance.
Which means, again, that means that is Sliske. That's who he is. These are
a lot of people have actually kind of boiled Sliske down, looked at him and said, he's too shallow, he's just Joker. It's actually not necessarily what my first reference was when I was talking to Anna. We were talking about actually a Marvel character called Arcade. Arcade is a character who kind of projects games or creates games because he doesn't have the power to go up against any of the superheroes himself. So he creates these kind of little bottled situations and scenarios to kind of distract from himself, and therefore he can gain power, etc. And that was where we were going for. So there's a little bit still in there. There is some Joker elements, I won't lie, still in there when we write it. And you've written for Sliske. He's a joy to write for.
He's fun to write for. And there is... Because you write him... So when you write your character, you kind of fall into the character a bit between you doing their dialogue. And you have the mask, you have the Sliske mask on, but because it's Sliske, you're having the Sliske mask, but also the mask that Sliske is showing on when you're writing. So at
that point in time.
Yeah.
Because it might change.
Yeah, absolutely. The mask thing actually came from nowhere, really, because a lot of people, when they were looking at Sliske's model, because he was reworked for World Wakes, and not all of the Magrat were at the same time, I think, or maybe for Missing Presumed Death. Some of the concept artists thought that he had a mask on.
Yeah.
So that then kind of filtered into, we kind of took that on, and Mod Ollie, Mod Raven and I worked a lot on Missing Presumed Death, particularly Mod Ollie.
It came about, obviously, because of the more theatrical aspects of his character that were coming apparent.
Yeah.
The sock and busking masks were the obvious
absolutely right. That misunderstanding led into an obvious kind of, this is the mask he's wearing, and then Light and Shadow, those fantastic characters from Missing Presumed Death. I'm hoping we get to do something more with them in the future. But now has taken on a kind of full-blown role in the Sixth Age. A few people have commented, they're feeling a bit kind of fatigued with the amount of Sliske. At the moment, we're probably going to dial it down after Kindred Spirits. But then, bang, he comes back in Sliske's Endgame, kind of full throttle. We're going to change. We're changing a little bit with Sliske. Is there anything you can talk about, for Kindred Spirits and Sliske's Endgame? Because your team is working on both.
My team's working. One of the problems that we've had with Sliske before, and this is probably not ruining too much if you've not played it, is that a lot of people feel that they can side with Sliske because he's a fun-loving, enjoyable guy, and he's just playing a nice little joke on the gods. And we're trying to... There should be at least one point where it's quite clearly revealed that Sliske is not Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah.
He's not that... I mean, he's still that kind of jovial thing, a little joke with the player, but he really, really has his own sort of goal in mind, and he'll take, anyone who gets in his way, he'll make sure that they suffer.
And so it's important for his character that we let that mask drop. But there's also, as narrative designers, as we all are, that while it's great that our players can side with everybody and make their own choices, ultimately, when you've got an arc like this, at some point you're going to have to say, no, everybody has to,
Yeah, it's all well and good wanting to be friends with somebody, but sometimes they don't want to be friends with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's possibly also worth pointing out that his end goal, his kind of the reason for behind everything, is something we've had relatively well established since the World Wakes or that sort of era. Maybe not specifics, but kind of like
his
the
true motivation.
Yeah. So it has been running throughout everything. It's not obvious.
Yeah, there are some breadcrumbs to try to figure out his main motivation. There's going to be a bigger breadcrumb in Kindred Spirits.
It's quite a large breadcrumb. It's almost a slice of bread. One would say.
Excellent. So we know that the Sliske's endgame is going to be the end of the Stone of Jazz and Sliske storyline. Really, that kind of game he's created, it's going to be the end of that game. And where Sliske is going to be, I know that a lot of people come up to me and said, like, oh, don't kill him. They know what we're like, don't kill him, please. We know where we're going with him, don't we? I think people are going to be relatively happy with what we've done there. It's all very suitable, don't worry.
I think happy's a relative term. But sure.
Is there anything else that we can kind of cover with Sliske? I know that we were coming up, trying to figure out what his colours were relatively recently on the God scoreboard. This is always a nightmare for us. The palettes of the gods.
What did we settle with?
We went for, he's the only one who's got a black.
Oh, yeah. Because
black and white.
We went through, like, an assortment of weird colours for a bit. I remember there was like some sort of salmon pink thing that was just going, why? And I think it was just, I don't know why they were going for that.
I think it's purely that colour hadn't been used yet.
I think that is exactly
salmon pink
it.
is,
and then we had neon pink, but we couldn't use neon pink because that's the magic colour that we had. So it meant it just got overwritten. But
then it just kind of fell on the fact that it doesn't have to be one colour.
Yeah.
And that because Sliske is about kind of like,
Light and shadow.
Deliberately kind of contradicting himself in the space of one sentence. He's black and white seemed quite appropriate.
And purple was most certainly taken.
So, yes.
There's no room for any more gods because we've run out of colours.
Until they invent more colours.
They'll have to have a plaid or paisley.
Tartan. Flock. Oh, this is all good. I like it. So there we go. Sliske and his end game has been covered. Next time round, we're going to be talking about the godless. So we're talking about an absence of gods for next time round.
An absence of godless.
And true, the absence of godless and the lack of godless storyline and why that may be. So do tune in for that. And thank you for listening to the Lore Corner.
And thanks there to Mod Osborne and the Lore team. And now on to RuneScape music. Today with me I have...
Mod Rowley.
Mod Rowley, what is your favourite RuneScape music?
Well, like Stu before me, I'm afraid I'm going to be somewhat selfish and I'm going to pick something from a piece of content that I've worked on.
Yeah.
And that would be from Fate of the Gods.
Yes.
I could quite happily pick any of the tracks from that quest as a favourite. I mean, they all kind of evoke that quest really nicely and the themes that we were going for. The track that stands out for me the most is The Elder Halls.
The Elder Halls. Why particularly?
For that one, it was because we wanted to capture a different style of music. It was something we hadn't done before. I remember talking with Mod Bond about it back when we were making the quest.
Yeah.
And I think we were using references like industrial music and ambient ELO, stuff like that. And I particularly, at the time, I was playing a game called The Rapture is Here and You Will Be Forcibly Removed from Your Home.
Okay.
Or for short, TRIHAYWBFRFYH.
Okay.
So go check some YouTube videos on that. And it just captured that kind of unknown...
That feeling.
Like the Elder Ones returning.
Okay.
It's got a really nice conversation between the Elder Gods and it feels like them building the universe. And when you play that track in situ of the actual Elder Halls, it just has this otherworldly feel. It just feels so different from anything else in the game.
It evokes it perfectly.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Well, we'll listen to that now then. And what an incredible piece of music. And now across the Mod Infinity and our customer support team.
Hello and welcome to the latest customer support segment of this week's podcast. Today we're going to be talking about leads and curators, a bit behind the scenes in customer support. I'm joined here by
Mod Steve W.
Mod Kelvin.
And Mod Sween.
And I'm Mod Infinity. So before we go into the details about kind of lead roles and curator roles, which we're going to talk about in a bit more detail very, very soon. Steve, you've got an update for us on scamming, is that right?
Yeah, just a bit of an update really. Scamming, we know it's something that really frustrates and annoys people, when this happens in game. We've actually been doing a bit of work behind the scenes now and a couple of things to tell people about really. So the first is we've had an initiative running where we're targeting the really high value items scamming. So, we're talking about the Halloween Santas, party hats, and that really high value stuff that gets scammed away. And it's obviously devastating for people when they lose those things. So we're doing a lot of work to identify the lurers and the scammers that are involved in obtaining these high value items. We've been working closely with our player moderators in that community. There's some guys in that community that are really sort of passionate about tackling scamming, and they've been really useful and helpful in working with us on that initiative. And of course, it's not just the scamming, although that's devastating for the people it happens to. There's obviously a lot of real world trading going on behind this as well. These items are worth so much that when they're converted into gold, it almost always ends up in sort of illegal gold markets. So, that's another reason why we want to tackle it. And really just a couple of things to say, which was to give people some sort of common sense reminders really about scamming.
Okay.
But also just to let people know that we've kind of put a new scamming prevention guide on our knowledge base as well. So, if you head to runescape.com and hit support in the top right-hand corner, go straight to our new support center there. And in there you'll find, if you just there's a search box, type in scamming prevention guide, and you'll find our guide there for sort of top tips of how to avoid scamming. But I just thought, given the audience this podcast, it might just be useful just to run through some of the scams we've noticed, particularly in this initiative, just so people can have some awareness about how they work. And
sure.
It's really common sense. The first thing is don't drop your stuff. If you drop stuff on the floor, you're almost certainly going to lose it. There's no reason for anybody to tell you to drop things on the floor. So if that's happening, just avoid it. Don't do it. It's going to end up badly. Another one we've noticed is people offering teleport tabs, saying that they want to trade you in another part of the game, and they're actually trying to force you into a trade and swap a tele tab for the valuable item that you're trading. So we've noticed a bit of that coming up recently. So just check the trade windows and be careful of that. And obviously, if anyone's offering to take you into the wilderness or a dangerous portal or anything like that, regardless of what they're saying, they might be talking to you as if they're friend.
Right.
They might be trying to actually get you involved in an anti-lure thing, saying, we're going to scam the scammer here. Those things don't work. If you're going to a dangerous area or asked to do something like that, it's probably, you're going to end up getting scammed. But yeah, check out our scamming prevention guide. It's all in there.
Okay, thanks for that update, Steve. So I guess in a sentence, if you could summarise what you've just kind of talked about there, what would that sentence be like?
Yeah, it's a phrase people have probably heard, but if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
All right, thanks, Steve. So going back to the topic of the podcast, we're talking about team leaders and curators. So for the listeners who maybe aren't too sure about what that role and function is within customer support, Kelvin, can you touch upon what they do and how they kind of have an impact on the department?
Yeah, so you kind of got two things there. So you've got curators and you've got team leads. What we try and do in customer support is invest in our customer support specialists. We try and build up people's skills, help them build a career here at Jagex in customer support and beyond. We run a variety of training programs. But core to that really is kind of the main job that people do on a day-to-day basis. So for a curator role, we will give an individual an area of responsibility and they will own it. So I know Mod Sween kind of works on the Scambuster initiative. So he's the curator for that. He owns it from beginning to end and works on it. And we'll give him a lot of kind of investment in training and help and support in doing that. Equally for our team leaders, rather than going and advertising and bringing in a kind of team leader from outside, what we actually do is look for individuals within the department who've got kind of leadership aspirations and show good, strong leadership skills. And again, put them on a training program and get them to experience managing a team for a period of 6 months. So they get a really kind of good experience at it. We're investing in people. People are growing and building their skills. And fundamentally, for both those roles, at the end of the day, we're looking at providing the best possible customer support that we can for our players.
All right, sounds good. So you mentioned it kind of rotates every 6 months. So how many leads have we had in the department
Okay, so this is kind of the third time we've kind of run this. So we'll have 3 or 4 guys as leads managing a kind of small team of sort of 3 or 4 people, and they can do that in a really kind of safe environment with lots of support from you guys as operations managers, from myself, head of department, Mod Mix as senior operations manager as well.
Okay, cool. I guess that feeds in quite nicely because at the start of this podcast we had Mod Sween introduce himself, and he's one of our team leaders. So, Mod Sween, I guess day to day, kind of what's your job entail? What's your role? What's your morning look like?
The first thing I do when I turn up in the morning is take stock of how queues were overnight. Obviously, we've got mods on overnight to continue giving service to the players, and then it's my responsibility to juggle the resources we've got and to make sure we continue providing support during the day when we've got more mods in and we're talking to more players. So I look at what we've got, I forecast who's working in which queues, who's doing which projects, who's handling which jobs, so that way we continue giving the best service to the players we possibly can.
All right, okay, cool. So I guess, people might not know that every kind of specialist in the department is trained up to deal with all types of inquiries. So back in the day, we used to have mods who just dealt with account help inquiries or just dealt with technical support inquiries. So that's all been changed now and has been for some time. So I guess you're looking at, what kind of specialists should go where, or kind of what queues have got the most kind of contacts in them. In terms of response times, it's something we're really proud about, and we kind of shout about it in our monthly forum stats. So is that something you're looking at as well, to make sure we're responding within a certain amount of time? Or
Absolutely. I mean, we will get back to a player within 48 hours. Most chances we'll get back to them within 24 hours, hopefully sooner. We'll do the best we can to do that. There are no promises in terms of quicker response time, but we will do our absolute best. And it could be easy if we just put the best mods on the best queues. But the thing is, it's important to train all mods on all queues, because people need to understand that JMods are humans as well. People have days off, people have time off, they're sick, they have holidays. Mm-hmm. So we need to ensure there's coverage all year round to give best service possible.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. And I guess that, we're sending out thousands of responses every single month to customers, whether that's through tickets or we're processing their account recovery appeals. And we pride ourselves on having a really high standard of work, and our customer satisfaction also kind of, supports that. So how do we make sure that the work that our guys are doing is reaches that really high standard?
Okay, so the most important thing is the training. It's really intensive. I joined late last year, and before I was even put onto the shop floor, if you were, I had 3 months of really intensive, high quality training to go through. So on top of that, we offer refresher training. So even though there's that really intensive period at the start, you'll be trained all year round just to ensure you continue giving the best quality service to the players. And then additionally, there will be ongoing sampling. So we check the responses from the mods, we check how the mods are doing, just to ensure that service is still at a high standard.
All right, cool. Sounds good. So I think, combined with that foundation training, the ongoing refresh training and the sampling you do, so you're looking at the tickets you're sending out, reviewing their quality and giving feedback.
So, Swing, can I just ask, if you come across, when you're sampling someone's tickets, if you come across something that you don't think is very good, what do you actually do with that?
So we'll offer coaching to the mod, just to try and pinpoint what exactly went wrong and how it can be improved upon. The important thing is we're not out to punish the mod, we're out to improve the mod, because as you said, we want to continue to invest in the staff. Additionally, there's also a process called outreach. Essentially, it's kind of a complaints department, if you were. So each time we send out a ticket, we have a little feedback link. We invite players to give their feedback to us. And if it seems to be negative, then someone like myself, I work on a complaints queue too. We will take it upon ourselves to contact the player, see if we can help them out further.
Okay, good. So whenever we find a situation where we've not done the best thing that we possibly could for someone, we'll actually go ahead and make good on that player and take the time to fix it properly.
Sure, the important thing is once the ticket's been sent out, that's not the end of it. We're there to continue helping the player.
Cool, good.
Okay, sounds good. So Mod Sween, you're talking about that you provide support to other mods and things, but I guess what's in it for you? What kind of support do you get?
I've got exposure to the operations team, the management team, as Kelvin explained. I get a lot of support. I'm in a program called the LDP, which is a leadership development program. Okay. So I have access to a lot of different training materials just to improve my leadership ability, to prepare me for any positions in the future that might come about. Addition to that, there are SDPs, so soft development programs, different skills that come up. So for an example, recently I took part in Steve W's presentational skills one. So now I'm much more confident when delivering presentations, something that'll help my career at Jagex, hopefully.
Absolutely. All right, sounds good. And, the skills development program, is that locked for leads only, or can everyone go on them?
It's for everybody.
Okay.
So as part of my role as lead, I deliver one-to-ones. I talk to the mods in my team every single week. So it's up to them. They can tell me what they'd like to do, and then I can offer suggestions on what SDBs to take part in. Mm-hmm. So it's a kind of two-way street. I get support from the people above me, and then I take feedback from my mods, and then I give them feedback too, in terms of what would prepare them for their career at Jagex.
All right, Mod Sween, thanks for that. So you kind of given an overview of what the team lead roles here at Jagex are all about. I think that's great, a very small snapshot. You actually do loads and loads of cool stuff, right? And but hopefully give some insight to the listeners as to what that's all about. So you mentioned Curator Roles, Kelvin and Steve. So, I think for quite a lot of listeners, they won't really know what a Curator Role is or what they do or what the responsibilities are. So, can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, so we've probably got, probably a third of the team have kind of curator roles. And kind of, as I said before, that is an individual who owns a particular area and is responsible for it from end to end. And fundamentally, really, that's about kind of two things. One, it's about providing the best possible customer experience that we can. And secondly, it's about us being as efficient as we can as a customer support team. So to give you an example, we get probably 1,000 odd payment queries every single week. So what the payment curator will do is kind of look at all the contact reasons that come in for payment. So how many people are asking for a refund? How many people are asking about a payment issue? How many people are having a problem with a particular MTX item or something along those lines? We'll then look at that and go, okay, actually there's a problem here. There's something that needs to be fixed in game. We need to feed that back to the MTX manager, or we need to just go and speak to kind of QA about it, etc. So we've always got extra eyes and kind of ears on the lookout for particular problems that are causing grief and problems for players, and then we were liaising with other departments throughout Jagex and throughout the RuneScape teams to get those fixed. Because at the end of the day, we don't want people to have problems. We want people to enjoy the game and for there not to be barriers or problems in the way of that.
Okay, Steve, so Kelvin mentioned that around a third of the team are creators. So how do they kind of keep in the loop and keep in touch with each other and the ops team?
Yeah, so every week all the curators get together with the department management team, and each curator will speak for a short time about their specialist areas. So there might be payment, tech, moderation, whatever it is. They normally have like a sort of report. Kelvin was talking about some of the sort of analysis of incoming volume, so they'll be able to sort of discuss that and share it with the wider group. And then they really talk about the kind of special projects, particular things that they want to work on that they think will improve their process. They can get direct feedback there and then from the management team about, the practicality of perhaps delivering some of those projects and what they want to do. And of course, it's really useful because all the curators are in the same room at the same time. Often there's sort of links between what people are talking about. So, for example, the technical curator might be talking about some contacts we've had this week about a technical issue, and that might actually link to problems with making a payment by a particular payment type. And because the payment curator is in the room as well, they can kind of talk to each other and find that commonality and then kind of work together to improve those things going forward. But yeah, they happen every week. Normally we have all the managers in there, and it's a good opportunity as well for them to shout about their successes as well. So they can say, look, we've done this thing. We've actually seen the customer journey improve because that thing we changed, 2-3 weeks ago, this is the effect it's had. This is the improvement that's been found on it. Maybe even reference some customer feedback as well, where customers have particularly noticed that something's improved because of something a curator's actually put in place. Okay, cool. So these kind of expert individuals who are owning specific areas in the department, that point of contact, the creating processes, the reviewing and analysing data, trending over a period of time and making recommendations to us and other areas in the business to improve customer journey and ultimately the customer service experience that we're delivering to our players. So you said about a third of the department, Kelvin, are curators. So what kind of things are they covering? What areas? So you talked about tech help and payments. So what else is there?
Okay, yeah. So you got tech help, payment and account help. We also have people looking at the account recovery system. So, there are kind of thresholds in there in terms of a certain amount of accounts are auto granted with really strong information, auto denied with poor information, making sure that we're kind of sampling the robot on that to ensure that it's not making mistakes. We also have our anti-hijacking initiatives. So, we've developed a report that detects accounts that are hijacked in game. So the hijack curator will look to improve that report and work with our data science team to improve that report. But also we'll be looking after the accounts that have been hijacked, locking them, cleaning them, and making sure people can kind of get back into game. Mod Sween mentioned outreach. So whenever we get a poor customer satisfaction survey response back from a player, we'll reach out to them, understand where we went wrong, feedback to the mod, and really importantly, ensure we fix that customer's issue. We've got social support that we do on Twitter, but we also look at things like Reddit, Facebook, and our own forums. So we've got one guy who's in charge of all of that and making sure, again, we're kind of providing the best service possible, trying to understand the differences, why people contact us on Twitter versus the support centre, etc. Okay. And then one other kind of big role, I suppose, that we've got, and really important role, is updates and promotions. So we've got one kind of main point of contact who liaises with the department, with the marketing department, with the content team. So whenever there's a kind of a big update that's kind of happening, or a big promotion that needs really clear player communication, he will liaise with them, help build out the FAQ, help write the kind of the news posts, make sure all the guys in customer support are briefed on what's kind of coming up and all the rest of it, so we're able to field questions. And importantly, what we try and do, I suppose, in customer support is put across the customer point of view. So he's very much kind of in the customer's shoes, asking questions. Okay, this is confusing. Right, we need to clarify that. Can we change this? Can we make information clearer, whether it's at the point of sale or a certain kind of contact point in game? Which again is all about providing that kind of best possible customer experience. So it's quite a kind of breadth and range of different curator roles, but hopefully it kind of gives the listeners a really good idea that customer support isn't just about answering tickets, though it's a really important part of what we do, and it is the majority of what we do. But equally, we're looking for those things that are causing players problems all the time and trying to get them fixed, probably without anyone knowing about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or certainly without any players knowing about it. And that's kind of everything running like a dream for me. If we've kind of spotted and anticipated issues and headed them off before they become a problem, then that's great.
All right, great. Thanks, Kelvin. So, Steve, I guess there's kind of two more curator roles which are quite behind the scenes, and one of them is community safety and moderation. So what kind of work does the curator do for that particular area?
The moderation curators, understanding really from the product owners and senior managers in the business, how we want to moderate our products and the action that we should take against things, the things we should be looking out for and detecting and dealing with. And we'll make sure we've got consistency across both games and making sure that we're applying things fairly and doing the right thing and making common sense sort of judgment and approach to things. And obviously our moderation people are also sort of keeping up to date with legislation, just making sure that we're compliant legally with everything that we do. So that's kind of quite a big part of what they do as well. And then, of course, they're involved in training the other guys here as well, making sure that they're taking the right action with things and spotting things when they should and doing the right thing for the common good of the community. And so that kind of needs sharing out and with the rest of the department and make sure that that's happening 24/7 and equally and fairly to everyone in the right way.
Okay, cool. And the other curator role, which is quite behind the scenes, who I look after, is our bug reports and system checks. So as mentioned in a previous podcast, customer support, and there was quite a lot of bug reports overnight during the day. We work with QA quite a lot, and so the curator there is looking at the number of bug reports we're closing, how are we categorising them, are we categorising it as it's not a bug or it is a bug? And they're kind of always talking to our QA teams, making sure that we're identifying bugs, we're helping them categorise them, working with them to close bugs as fast as we can. And finally, system checks as well. So we mentioned in the other podcast as well that every hour of every day, we've got people checking our systems, making sure the website's working, the game's up and running, every world's online, all the servers are doing it as expected and behaving as they should. And so they liaise with our tech teams, our IT teams, our engine teams, reporting on any kind of outages or downtime, making sure players are aware of any expected downtime or outages. Yeah, and again, they're kind of a crucial part of that customer support curator circle, if you will.
Yeah, and it's a really important service, I suppose, that customer support provides to the rest of the business and for players. We're there when everyone's kind of gone home and everyone's asleep. We're there kind of looking for potentially a game-breaking problem or something that's going to affect a significant amount of players. And when we do that, we then identify the issue and we make a call out and we call the guys that can fix it. And unfortunately, we're getting people out of their beds at kind of 3 a.m. But that's all about ensuring that we can get something fixed nice and quickly, and as few players as possible are affected by any problems.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, I think that's pretty much it. I think we've given kind of an insight into the behind the scenes of customer support yet again, but looking at kind of the team leader role, which Mod Sweden has talked about, but also the curator roles we have in the department too. And obviously a huge kind of thumbs up from us to the whole support team for all the work they do. Curators or not, leads or not, they all do a fantastic job. All right, well, that's it from us. If you need any help or support, you can check out the support center. Just go to runescape.com and hit support in the top right. If you want to give us any feedback on this particular podcast, then you can tweet us at Jacket Support on Twitter. But for now, that's goodbye from me, Mod Infinity.
That's goodbye from Sweden.
Ta-da from Kelvin.
And goodbye from Mod Steve W.
Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us again next time for a bumper crop of RuneScape fun. Bye.